It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of TAXITV Live. Yahoo! The audience goes crazy, and today our special guest is my good friend and longtime Taxi member, Mr. Bob Mete. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Michael. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Good to see you. I'm going to lose one of my ears there. Move 2 inches to your other way, to your right. There you go. Perfect. All right. I've got you centered. All right. And I can see people in the chat room saying hello to us both. So hello, everybody in the chat room. Good to see you.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk music licensing success despite having a day job. And the reason I asked Bob to the show was because he's a great example of somebody who has an extremely busy work life, a family, a lot of adult responsibilities. One of them is shoveling horse manure. Yet he's been able to build a really nice second income creating music for licensing to TV, film, and commercials. So I know a lot of people think it's really hard to find the time to create music on any sort of regular basis because they've got a day job and a family and all that stuff. But when you hear about Bob's schedule, pre-COVID schedule, you'll be shocked at how well he's done. And I want you guys to meet him so that you know that it can be done. You got me?
We're getting there.
Oh, yeah. You're getting the feedback? All right. Yeah, get your cans on. And
it's coming through there, too.
Oh, are you watching the show on your computer as well? Are you on YouTube?
I'm sorry?
Are you on YouTube as well?
No. Should I be?
No.
No. Okay. No. No. Okay. It's
right. You still getting
going great up until now.
Yeah, the vagaries of doing online stuff.
Wow. Okay. Let me try the headphones again.
All right. Testing 1, 2. How's that?
It's I'm gonna lower the volume. It's a little better. Let's see here.
All right. So, yeah, I'm not getting any slap on this end.
Oh, there. I brought the volume way down, and now we're good.
Okay, good. Anyway, great to see you. Sorry we didn't get a chance to see each other at the road rally this year, but hopefully in 2021, it's kind of up in the air at the moment, but hopefully the vaccines, make their rounds by November and we can do it. All right, folks in the chat room are saying that everything is good on their end, audio-wise. So that's great. So let's get some background on you. Tell our viewers what you do for your day gig and how often, when COVID isn't a factor, that you travel for work. Like how many days a week are you in the air or on the road?
In the good old days, when we could travel, I was supposed to be on the road every other week. And that never worked out. It seemed like I'd go 6, 8, 10 weeks straight. Not full weeks, but, fly out Tuesday, come back Thursday, fly out Wednesday, come back Friday, that kind of thing. In 2019, I had 121 flights, did over 160,000 miles in the air. What I do for a day gig is now I'm always transitioning. I'm reinventing myself. When I joined, I work for a company called Brooks Equipment, and they're the largest fire protection safety distributor in the world. And basically in your office and everyone's office, you see the fire extinguisher, you see the alarm, you see the sprinkler and the emergency lights. We sell all the parts that the distributors need to inspect them and service them. And my bailiwick, where I came from, is I was born in the lighting industry, and mine is exit signs and emergency lights, and that's from manufacturing, distribution. So when I came to them as a product manager, and huge company, no salespeople, all online. So I was one of the only people for the company ever to be out on the road, doing training. And I said, hey, while I'm here, I can make some sales calls. I'm a professional salesperson. And they're like, what? Talk to our customers in person? That's unheard of. So yeah, and then I started bringing back stuff, that they did, and so that developed. Then there were 4 outside salespeople. Then I gradually got out of that and came back just to training. That's what I've been doing for the last 8-9 years for them. Our customers obviously buy our products, and I go in and train them on the codes, the laws, and how to do service on exit signs and emergency lights, and how to make a whole lot of money doing it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you have to know all the laws and the regulations for all the different states they're in.
Yeah, well, most of them follow national codes.
Oh, okay.
So it's either God, I feel like I'm doing my day gig here. And a PA 101 or the International Code Council, or in states they sometimes write their own codes. So yeah, it's narrowed into groups, and then the electrical code and OSHA and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I do know a lot about codes.
Wow. All right. So give us some context on your music licensing life. How many pieces would you estimate, whether they're songs or instrumentals? How many do you have out there in catalogs at this point in time, would you say?
Well, if I go by my BMI registry, I have about 541.
That's
but a lot of
substantial.
Yeah, but a lot of that is, retitling between publishers and stems and all that. My main go-to publisher, I have approximately, I think I'm just under 80 signed pieces with this one publisher, and they're all songs. There's no cues there or stems. Those are all songs.
Do you ever do instrumental cues, or do you only do songs?
Oh no, I do some instrumental cues. Sometimes when a publisher will put out a brief, I just did one a couple of years ago, and not one, but I did a whole series for piano, tension, crime, drama kind of thing. In the lab, CSI type stuff, and it was fun. It's different than writing a song because I'm so melody driven or lyric driven. And
Yeah.
then suddenly, you're just doing, a minute or, a minute and a half, 2 minutes of, set it, build it, get out. It was a learning experience. Yes.
How many publishers do you have stuff with? I know that you've got that main one that's your go-to, but how many overall?
I have about 15 different publishers that I actively send music to. And it's the 80-20 rule. I have like 3 or 4 that make me money that are, always on the BMI statement. The newer stuff comes in, from them.
Right. I've often held you up to be the smartest guy I know in music licensing, and people say, why? And I say, because what Bob does oftentimes is like full-on instrumentals that could be 2 or 3 minutes long versus doing a 60 to 90-second cue. And that's because I know that you do a lot of cocktail jazz stuff.
Yeah.
And cocktail jazz often ends up in a scene with 2 people having dinner in a restaurant, having a conversation, and they're not darting in and out of cues. They hit go, and that music plays during the entire, happy anniversary, honey scene. So you get long plays.
Yeah, especially like I'm with BMI, you get into that 2-3 minute range of a vocal. You get the super rate. You get even more money, and it's like yes. So when I'm on TV, when I'm watching, when I know there's going to be a show that has one of my songs on it, I'm there with the stopwatch. How long is it? And it goes back to when we talked on Taxi before. My son Ryan said, we can hardly hear it. They're paying these beautiful upfront fees, but you can hardly hear it. And I'm like, they don't pay us on volume; they pay us on length. And that's, that's I'm going to print up a shirt that says that. It's just, and it's so true sometimes. But I forget where I was, but I was listening to some music supervisors, and they addressed that, and they said, even though the music's so low you could hardly hear it, when we take it out, the scene falls apart. It's just that noise. It's just that filter in the background that gives the scene life, that gives it realism.
Speaking of noise and background, hang on, I'm going to go turn off my heater. I'll be right back.
Sure thing.
one of my pre-show responsibilities, and I forgot to do it. Yeah, it's funny. I've been talking recently on the Quarantini happy hours that I'm still doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays about there's a thing in video editing called room tone, where they just take the sound of a heater or an air conditioner, the hum that you hear in a room. If you have a scene that doesn't even have that in it, it feels unnatural. So they literally have libraries full of different kinds of room tone, and they insert that into video when there's no music playing, just to make it feel real.
Nice.
Let's see. So how many placements would you say? How long have you been doing music licensing? Let's establish that first.
Okay, I joined Taxi in 2007.
Wow, you're an old timer.
Yeah. And I got my first deal in like 2010. In fact, you were doing a mini rally in Nashville. And
oh, yeah, I remember that. Was Dean Crepane spoke at it, right?
Yes, Dean was up there, yeah. And I brought you a little bottle of champagne to say thanks.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, that's there. And then it was about, well, it was later that year that I got the big deal with Donna Karen for those advertisements. I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we will.
And so I then the first real placement was like 2011 on Californication. And it was for that song that got signed back in 10. So yeah, it's patience. It's a slow road, and you just gotta just keep going at it day by day.
It's funny how many people who don't know the drill think that you submit a song, it gets forwarded by Taxi, ends up going to a supervisor or a library, and they're going to get a check in 90 days. Doesn't work quite like that.
No. I look at sync payments as like coupons on a bond or an annuity. It's going to be 6 months or 9 months down there, but I know it's coming, so that's cool.
Yep. So how many placements overall do you think you've had?
Well, my placements are different than a lot. You see like on the forum, you say, 1,000 placements and all that, because those most of them mainly cues. I probably have a good solid 50 to 60 syncs where the upfront money and then obviously the back end too. So
hang on. Sorry. I forgot to unplug the phone too. I'll be right back.
It's about your car warranty.
Oh, well. Luckily, my wife is upstairs and she grabbed the phone. Nobody ever calls on the landline except for solicitors nowadays.
It was about your car warranty.
Exactly. What is up with those car warranty guys? They're ruthless. No matter how many times I block their number, they call on another one like in 5 minutes. It's not just me. Wow, I thought it was just me. So yeah, okay. So you're like you're not wholly unlike other Taxi members, but you've got your own little niche going, that you tend to get stuff that's got sync fees attached. And for those who are watching the show that are new to the industry, a sync fee is an upfront payment. A lot of the music that you hear in reality shows, nobody gets upfront payments for that. You just get your money from ASCAP or BMI on the back end because it's performed on a TV show. With a sync fee, which is oftentimes associated with like a broadcast network show that could be on ABC, CBS, NBC, or Fox, it's usually $2,500 to $5,000-ish up front. You typically split that with a publisher, and then you make money on the back end, especially if it's on a broadcast net and it plays for a long time like Bob songs do. You make real good money. So he's not one of these guys, I've had 3,000 placements, but he's had placements that make him really good money.
One placement that I have, there was no upfront. It was from one of the 80% publishers, but it got placed in a cartoon, The Amazing World of Gumball. And finally, finally a music that my grandkids can watch and listen. It's not an R-rated show, but it was one of my piano cello pieces, a new age piece.
Yeah.
And it was, and when I wrote it, I was thinking in my mind, I was hearing like the ending of Schindler's List, where when the guy's walking through the sun and the music was just so and that's what I was thinking. The song is called "The Sweet Sorrow," and it's very mellow like that. And I saw an amazing word like, oh, well, how can this possibly be? When I found the clip, the cartoon characters did a little documentary. And they were talking about, the impoverished kids or something. And so the music fit in beautiful. And let me tell you, the Cartoon Network pays phenomenal. And it keeps repeating. And I'm amazed that it was a minute. It was I think it was about 42 seconds. But every time it plays, it's like $40, $50.
Yeah.
And it plays all the time. So I'm like, yes.
Yeah, cartoons do. They repeat like crazy. They often syndicate, at least nationally, if not all over the world. Yeah. So great. Tell us about some of your most notable placements. I'm sure the Donna Karan thing will be included.
Yeah. The Donna Karan was a real eye opener. It was like vindication, validation, any other kind of Asian I can think of. Because, up to that point, the whole world is taxi, for starting out. I mean, you're the portal, we have to get through this portal to get to the world, so to speak. And, you're getting the accepting, you're getting rejections and going back and forth. And then you start getting some acceptances. And then when I got the call that, hey, you're in the final running for this perfume. And I told the story on stage when we were together at a rally. And when I got the deal, it was beautiful money, low, mid 5 figures. And I went into my wife, who was in, sleep. I say, hey, I got this great deal. And she goes, what? I said, it's with this Donna Karan or something. And she goes, you don't know who that is, do you? And I said, no. She goes, go Google it. And I said, what? Come on, just tell me. She goes, you're an idiot. Donna Karan, the designer. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, at first when it came in, pure DKNY, I thought that was an abbreviation for donkey. But yeah, no, that was sweet. And then it ran a year. It was a year's fee. And then it was up in February of the following year. And so I'm anally retentive. I check all my sound cloud stats and disco. I mean, I'm always counting the numbers, who's watching, who's listening, blah, blah, blah. And so I noticed that, the contract was up in February 31st. And I was on their page. They were also running the music on their website for the perfume. And, it started to become March. And so I called the publisher. I said, are they going to renew? And she said, no. She goes, I checked with them. The program's dead. Okay. So then in March, it was still playing. So I called them back and said, are you sure they're not renewing? Because it's still on their website. And she goes, well, really? She goes, I'll get back to you. And she called back about 2 days later. She goes, thanks for your diligence. She goes, we just got another $5,000 for use for another year, just on the internet, just because it played when people were shopping. And I was like, beautiful. And then the next year, the pure DKNY Verbena came out, and they used it again. And there was another, you dream of those sync fees. Those are,
Yeah.
In terms of the advertising world, that's actually a small fee, So, but I'm waiting for one of those big ones to come in.
Well, and I know what that number was. And just to be clear, it wasn't the $5,000 that Bob just mentioned for the internet use. Using it in the TV commercials got him many more times the $5,000. But yeah, I guess compared to people that get a couple $100,000 for a big commercial, it wasn't that big. But still, it was definitely way up there. And I don't know any musician who would turn their nose up at that dollar amount.
No, that was wonderful. Yeah, some of my really nice. We were just on again a restaurant scene. HBO's The Undoing. That was a great. I don't know if you watched it, but it was, I was glued to it. And my wife's joke is always, I got a place. Okay, what restaurant are they in? She calls me the king of the restaurant music. And it's, that's what it is. Ray Donovan, Volchek, when the guy goes into the restaurant where they're talking, blows his brains out. That's me, playing in the background. I got such memorable, placements. How do you know? Well, you'll know when the guy shoots himself in the head. That's me playing there.
Would you like a little brains with your dinner?
But I kept playing. I just kept wiping off my glasses.
How many years have you been making music? Because I know you've been doing music long before you joined Taxi.
Yeah.
Did you start out when you were a kid with like piano lessons, the typical thing?
In fact, I just started giving piano lessons, and I have a couple very young students, and I found some of my first books.
Wow.
1967. Boy, do I feel old. But yeah, that's when I started at 12 years old, the third grade. And yeah. I wrote my first song in third grade. It was all right hand. I didn't realize it was the key of B major, but it's just all the black notes, but it was a cute, then I wrote lyrics to it, but yeah, but did the whole 8th grade, 9th grade bands, and playing for passing the hat around, playing for food. One time the guy came and said, "Get the hell back on the band, saying your band is eating more food than they're playing."
Usually that would be drinking, I think.
I did that in college. Yeah. Well, my sax player was about 300 pounds. So college, I did the Elks Club, every Friday night, in high school, I did the steak bar, the cobbler, and even then, you realize, it's 8:30 on a Friday night. Yeah. Big Jim from Sears is coming in. He sits at the end of the bar. He has a beer. He'll have 2, then leave. And then Joe comes, and at that age, I realized that, I really don't want to play cocktail bars, for my entire life. But, it was funny that you mentioned, for writing, because I was just talking to my wife, I think about a week ago. I said, when I realized that I really wanted to do music for film and stuff, I always tell the story that I told my dad that, and he said, "Yeah, you have to go to Hollywood. The walk would do you good." And ka-ching, but what really hit me, where that little ding hit you in the heart, and you get that sensation. I never forget it. It was I was either at the end of high school or just in college. I was home. Saturday. I was watching TV, and I was watching Kojak. Who Loves You, Baby? That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the episode, where they caught the bad guy and all that stuff, Telly Savalas walks out of the precinct, and it's night, and they dimly lit in the alley with the the round globe lights, and it starts snowing, and it was either a trumpet, I can't remember that far back, but I think it was a flugelhorn. It was some slow, beautiful flugelhorn music. And it was just jazzy, and he just, looked up and said his last line, and then the music took it out. And I remember just sitting there, just like drained. It was like, oh my God, that was beautiful. And it, how you just get that feeling, and you just knew that I don't know how, but I got to get there. And eventually I got there. It's
well, you sure did. So what are your favorite genres of music to play? Like, you still do play the occasional piano bar gig, right? Or am I mistaken about that?
Not really. Who has time?
Well, yeah.
Jazz gigs start at 10, 11 o'clock. I'm in bed by then. I'm closing up the studio. I'm not going out for a gig at that hour. But I will do, hey, someone, we have a special, will you come in and play? And I do, believe it or not, I do more gigs on the road for like the trade associations.
Oh.
Like some of the pictures I just got a small record deal, and I had in Japan. Nice. And I had to send pictures, and I was looking at some of the pictures for me and playing a white grand piano, white or black. Oh, anyway, it was a grand piano that they brought in on the 30th floor of the Swiss Hotel overlooking Lake Michigan or one of those big lakes out there. And, and I was doing the cocktail for them. They said, hey, we know you play. Would you play for us? And I did. And more, I can't tell you how many associations I provide the music during the annual
Wow.
meetings and stuff, and it's just so yeah, that's I'm to the point now when once COVID's over, I'm gonna want a gigs just to get out,
Yeah.
because just I was thinking the other day, all the old standards, of course I could still play Missy, of course I could still play Satin Doll, Green Dolphin Street, run down the list, but then there's a lot of songs that, oh my God, I haven't played that one in 20 years, got to take out the books and start cutting. I'm gonna probably gig more on the horn, on the sax than the piano. So
That's right. I forgot you play sax.
I play them all. I
Wow.
and I and I like, and that's really great for like when I'm doing a big production.
Yeah.
I cut to both alto parts, to both tenor parts, to Barry, and I can even throw the soprano on and get that full sax sound section going. That's cool because then you put some muted brass up on top, and it sounds like Nelson Riddle's, band is there.
I've got to say, Barry sax is one of my very favorite instruments to record. It's just, the sound is so satisfying in a control room on big monitors, especially if you use like an old RCA ribbon mic on it and run it through a Pultec equalizer and a tube limiter, and you listen to it in the control room. It's just like it's like having a really good dessert. Let's just say.
It's funny, but a lot of my Barry sax stuff gets placed.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one my favorite. As a matter of fact, it won one of your contests on a TAXITV, Red Sky Morning. I won one of Robin's books.
Oh, cool.
Is in a movie with Linda Redgrave and Danny Glover, about Scout. And the scene. Of course, I rented the movie. I'm like, okay, where it is, and Jane Seymour is laying on a couch sweating because it's the air conditioning and there's a power outage in New York City, and they're playing some kind of board game by candlelight, and there's my Barry sax in the background, and then Danny Glover calls her on the phone, and they're having this conversation with my music going on. Yeah, it never gets old. Once you get placements, it never gets old.
I know you're one of my favorite people that whenever you get something, you'll post it on the forum, and you can feel the excitement coming off the webpage, and I'm always proud and happy for you. How old were you when you started? I know you said you wrote something in third grade. I mean, was that like the beginning of something you did regularly? At what point did you become a more serious writer, composer?
I started putting pen to paper probably around 8th grade, 9th grade.
Yeah.
Then I started writing with a buddy of mine, and we started doing every night writing. And we were, like this in our writing style. And we just, the mind, we didn't have to talk. We just knew. He'd go home. I'd stay. He'd come to my house to write, and then he'd go home. And the next night we'd get together, and I say, "Hey, I wrote this little piece last night." He goes, "I wrote one," and where mine ended, his started. It was uncanny. Wow. Yeah, and we got some copyrights. Oh boy, waiting, 26 weeks for the copyright office to give us that piece of paper, put it on the wall.
Many years ago, I had to go to the copyright office. It's in room B14 in the basement of the Library of Congress. And when you go there, it's a hallway that is designed to be a bomb shelter for people that work in DC should anything ever happen. The hallway is so long that they use golf carts to go back and forth down there. But when a golf cart drives away from you, it goes over the horizon and actually disappears because of the curvature of the earth. It's so weird to be underground and see that. I mean, it literally just disappears over the curve of the earth. That's a long hallway.
Wow. Yeah.
So the Telly Savalas moment, I mean, what did you do after that? When you decided you want to start composing for media, did you start paying attention to music in a different way when it was in TV shows? Did you start writing right away? How did that all come to fruition?
No, I just kept playing. I was still playing. I was gigging a lot, because in college, poorer than a church mouse. And, those gigs, kept food going and wine in the refrigerator, so to speak. But no, I didn't start dreaming of getting into the sync side or the TV film until way later. Then, I told the story, my dad said, I know you want to be a music major, but, go for marketing at this point, because, you have what it takes to be a salesperson in a market. You demonstrated that. You'll love it, do it. You'll always have your music. I said this before in the other one, and it was fantastic advice. He says, get a business background. You'll always have your music. If you want a gig, you gig. If you don't have to. But if you do the music thing, it's a rough life. I mean, I really feel bad for all the musicians out there who, all the restaurants are closed. They're doing online concerts just to make some money to eat and survive. But having the business background, in our company, Brooks has been fantastic. We all stayed employed. We reinvented how we go to market, and to keep everyone going. But I still have my music, and now as I'm getting ready for transitioning into retirement, now I can flip it from the business side to where I'll probably do hopefully some kind of contract work for Brooks as I go in, because in September I'm 66 in 2 months, so I can take full Social Security. And I was born at the right time where I won't get penalized if I earn money. Because at certain ages, if you take your Social Security, if you earn money, they pull back your Social Security. So that's, these are all in the financial plan. You got to be aware of these things. And so I can still do contract work.
That's right. We're the same age. I'm a little older. I turned 66 last September.
Yeah.
But yeah, not planning on retiring anytime soon, but someday, I guess. So what made you decide to join Taxi?
2006, my son is a musician too, and the buddy I was telling you about in high school who I lost contact with, we reconnected and we said, hey, let's get together, let's put out an album. So we took a week. We sat in my what was my studio at the other house, and I had a little 16-track Korg with the slide dials, and I bought some Shure SR 48s or something, and some mic stands, and we sat there for a week and we wrote like 4 tunes, and then a month later we went up to Baltimore where Ryan was living, and we went into a studio and we spent 2 nights and we cut these 4 tunes, and so now Bob the marketer is gonna take the world on, and I bought the publisher books, the indie Bibles, and I'm making mailing lists and I'm doing all this stuff. And I started one of the magazines. I saw your ads, and I'm like, what is this? And people making deals and this and that, and I'm a true skeptic, and I was like, this can't be real, blah blah. But then I kept seeing the ads, and there were real people there talking, and then I went on the website, and I kind of got hooked. I went down the forum, and I was reading deals and reading about this and reading about that, and it was my birthday, July 14th, 2007. That was my birthday present. I joined Taxi. And came to my first rally, and I remember, I said this before in the Taxi, I remember sitting there with my little CD with 4 songs, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? It's like, I was 50 something, and learned quickly that they don't sign 50-year-old artists, even though how good my soprano sax sounded on that CD. But then and I said, well, you're here, you spent the money, do it, just listen and start. And I started making some friends. I ran into Matt, and I ran into Chuck and John Mazet, and it was kind of it was feeling good, and I was kind of like digging this. And then I think it was the following year, you opened the Taxi rally, and you came out and you said, hey, how many of you, and you played just a little piano quip through the system. And you said, how many of you could play that? And I'm like, I could play that. And then you played a little guitar riff. How many of you could do that? And you could write for TV and film. And I'm like, bing, the bell went off. and the horse, ran out of the gate and the race was on. And then I realized, okay, I got a hell of a lot to learn. And I'm 50 something years old. I got to learn it now. And there's, taking no prisoners, just boom, I'm off to the races. And that's how I do things, just, okay, we're doing this now.
I think, it's funny. I was just editing the Matt Vanderboe interview that he did for the Road Rally last November. He's that way. Chuck Henry's that way. Many of the Taxi All-Stars, or many of our successful members, period, no matter what level of success they're at, they tend to be people who focus on something and just go, I'm going to get this done. And they do, rather than feeling that they're entitled to make money with their music just because they feel that they should. You guys have actually worked for it, and every one of you has become successful. So do you have any particular set of genres that you prefer to work in, or do you do whatever is needed? How do you decide what you're going to record?
I tend to stay in the jazz realm. Straight jazz, cocktail jazz, piano jazz, vocal jazz. From this, I tend to gravitate to the late 50s, 60s, the Nancy Wilson era, the Cannonball Adderley era. That's where, and that's getting a really big revival now. That style is really being grasped. So I'm good at that, and new age. And in fact, when the small record deal I got in Japan, Muzak Japan, they wrote to me and they said, and he kept saying, we've signed over 300, jazz artists, but they wanted my first Snowfall album.
Wow.
That was on DistroKid. And that album is new age. It's all solo piano. And then when I was given the master, he goes, no, this is really not jazz. This is more new age. And I said, well, I was kind of confused as to why you were telling me about jazz. So I also, and again, marketing, because he signed so many jazz, I also sent him many playlists of my jazz stuff. So hopefully down the road, there'll be, more contracts coming. But it's pretty neat. It's a deal in Japan. And they're hawking they're actually printing CDs, and they're going to the I guess curio shops or specialty shops. They're doing download, and I'm also the in-flight entertainment on international flights of ANA Airlines for February and March. So,
wow. Do you remember John Brahaney?
Oh yeah.
He used to be the guy who put together the shows. I think it was for Delta Airlines. He would pick the music and narrate the show and do like the unsigned channel on Delta Airlines for years. Oh, wow. And I remember people made some decent money being on those in-flight things. I don't know how ASCAP or BMI figured that out, but they did. So can you say that one genre of jazz is like more frequently licensed or more financially rewarding than others? Is cocktail jazz the predominant thing?
Yeah, it'd be cocktail jazz and the solo piano jazz. One tune that was placed in the series, The Originals, it was actually played live in the scene. I had to not only give them the track, but I had to send them the sheet music. And it's what's really interesting is that after that episode, Dry Martini is one of my most streamed piano tunes. Yeah.
Interesting, because people have seen it in the show, they Googled it, figured it out, added it to their playlist.
Exactly. And then there's like TuneFind and stuff, people are liking that, this song just makes me feel so relaxed and da-da-da-da-da. And is there other music? Of course, social marketing, you got to answer them and tell them where they can go to download your stuff. And
that's great. I'd love to hear that. So when you write, which of these two mindsets are you typically in? A, I'm going to compose the most brilliant piece of music I've ever created, or B, I'm going to compose the most usable piece of music I can for film and TV by making it simple and emotionally impactful.
And it's what's going to get used. Uh, I'm gonna write a nice song. I'm gonna wordsmith it. If I'm working with a co-writer, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. We're gonna production is where it has to be. It has to be broadcast quality. It has to be all those wonderful things. But it's gonna be what can be used. Because a lot of times when I'm writing, there's scenes in my head. I'm very visually graphic that way. When I'm writing music, I'm usually picturing my own little scene of how that would play or how that would feel in a scene. And then then you come back to all the years of rallies and music supervisors telling you, this is what you don't do. This is what will keep you out of a scene. Just overplaying, just blaring stuff, or just things in certain ranges that'll interfere with voice being spoken. And be very cognizant of that when you're writing. So key selection is real important. Of course, if there's a vocal, you got to be writing for the that's my one of my big tips is I learned write the song because I do everything MIDI to start. And before you record it, if it's going to be a vocal, and if you know who the vocalist is going to be, you run it by them and say, "Is this your key? This is where the range of this song is. So tell me now, so I can adjust it." Because a lot of stuff I like writing in the key of F, but that high E, that's a lot of problems for especially female singers. So, but if I bring it down to A flat. But I write it in F. That's easy, and then just computer-wise, bring it down to bring it into their key. Because I've had singers come in and say, "Oh yeah, this is great, but if I could take it down a third, sorry, the key's the key because I've already recorded the sax. I already have my drummer and my bass guy come in. We're locked here. You either can do it or you can't do it." So,
how long does it take you to do an instrumental piece? Solo piano instrumental piece versus doing a full-on jazz song with I'm guessing like a 4-piece band and a vocalist?
I just sent my new record. I was on lunch a couple months ago, and I'm very rigid in the day gig and music. At 12 I take my lunch hour, and a lot of times I'll just eat something quick and I'll come in and I'll work in the studio for an hour and then get back to work. I started writing a solo piano piece. I wrote it, mixed it, mastered it in 37 minutes, submitted it to there. I let the publisher know it was there. They signed it within 2 hours. So that's my record. That's not the norm, though. That's
a record for everybody. I think really you just set the record for the entire world of musicians doing sync work. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was fun. I was just plinking around and this sounds good, and I just opened up the machine. Okay, got a little click track going and just played it. I had very little. It was one of the few times I had very little things that I had a few pressures here, a few keys were a little too hard. Did it, boom, boom, wrapped it up, book it, Dano. And I'd like to do more of that, but usually a nice 3-minute solo cocktail piece, it'll take me an evening. Mm-hmm. And then I like to sleep on it and come back to it in a day or so, let it ferment there for a little bit, and then listen to it, and and then you open it up and like, oh my God, what the hell was I thinking? Oh my God, delete, and then other times, ooh, and I don't know what this has happened so many times to me. I'll shut down the studio. I'm through whatever I'm doing for that night, and then just for the heck of it, I'll open up. I'm in Logic, so I'll open up that drive that has all my files on it, and I'll just start looking at titles, and I'll say, 2016. What's this? I don't even remember it. And I open it up, and it's fully orchestrated. Strings, 5-part sax parts, a whole big music. But it needed something to finish. And obviously, I closed the file. Something else came in that was important, or I was on the road, and then I started working on another and totally forgot about it. And okay. So now I have lists everywhere of these, because I found like 5 or 6 of them. And then I find little segments, just I have an idea, I open up, create it, and then forget about it. And this is, in fact, a couple of my co-writers, we had a nice verse, but we didn't have a chorus and we didn't have anything written yet. And I went through and I found this song that could easily be a chorus. And it was in a different key, so I quickly changed the keys and I put them together. Whoa, that worked, and it got signed.
Amazing. So forget 2020 and COVID, but in a normal year with you traveling as much as you do, how do you find the time to do this stuff? I mean, do you get off a plane, walk in the door to your house at 8:00 at night and start working on music? Or your wife's name is Sue, right? Susan, Sue?
Wait, say that again?
What's your wife's name? Sue?
Michelle.
Whoops, wrong taxi member. Anyway, do you walk in the door? Hi, Michelle, what's for dinner? Oh, thank you. What's for dessert? And then off to the studio? I mean, how do you find the time to do all this?
No, it goes the other way. Hi, hon, I'm home. She says, what are you cooking for dinner?
My house, too.
Yes, I do all the cooking, yes. Thank God. We have a deal. We have a deal. I cook, she cleans. So that's how that works. No, it's just regimentation. Your day is in blocks. How it worked then and how it works as opposed now. Back then, if I was one of those in weeks, and this goes off the same now. Michelle's alarm goes off at 4 a.m. She gets up, gets the coffee going, and she likes to plink on the computer. My alarm goes off at 5. We're both at the barn by 6. We spend about an hour and 20 minutes out there. Right now, we're bringing them in. Now it's been snowing and cold, so we have
He's just for you guys who don't know, they've got, 14 horses that are boarded on your property, something like that?
24.
24. I was off by 10. Look, I don't know your wife's name. I don't know how many horses you have. Clearly, I'm just padding.
How you doing?
So you get up at 5:00 in the morning, go out and take care of the horses before you do anything.
Yeah, we bring them in. It's been, freezing here, so we can't water them at night. So we got to fill 24 water buckets, make sure they have hay, bring them in. When it's really cold, they act like idiots. So, I'm being, dragged like this between two 18-hand horses, which are, if you don't know horses, that's big. I mean, their withers are over my head. And if they decide to get together and squish me, it'd be easy. But, so it's 7:15. I'm in the house. I make my wife's lunch. She goes off to the law firm. Then I go do the day. Now I do the day gig. Lunchtime I'll play. 6:00 we go out. We help whatever's left to be done. She has a lot of students that are pitching in, doing the shoveling. I end up usually spreading and watering. And then we come in. I usually set up dinner before we go out so it's ready. Eat, 8:00. Usually done by dinner. I'd like to eat earlier, but 8:00 is what it is. Studio, 9:10. Lately it's been 9:10 because I'm just tired. But normally I'd go to like 11 and start the Groundhog Day, start it all over. In 2019, when I was traveling a lot, that would be my in-week thing. And when I go on the road, I had a little iPod thing, and whatever I was working on would be loaded in there. And I'd take sheet music with me, and I'd take my pad. I have my little books. And where I'll be working, I'm sitting on the plane, I'm conducting. People think I'm weird, but I'm looking at this, listening to this, writing lyrics, or sometimes just a song will come to me like, I got to write that lyric down because I'll forget it. Write it up. If I'm in final mix, then I'll have that in there. And on that hour and a half, 3-hour flight, 4-hour flight, I will listen to it literally 500 times. I just hit repeat and I just keep listening. And, you get to that level where you're listening, not just for what she's singing or he's singing or what you're playing, but, that hi-hat, that snare, is the bass, did the bass player hit, an eighth where the kick hit? And am I getting a ba-dum? instead of a boom, making
Yeah.
all the little things that keep you awake at night. And then you're listening to the mix itself, just where it's sitting. You're listening in little earbuds, and I used to bring CDs along in the rented car, and I'd shove it in there while I'm driving to the next place, listening and listening and listening. So, and that's it comes down to, I think John Mazzei, made a post years ago. He says, not the gear, it's the ear.
Yeah.
And that's what that's your other instrument, is getting so you can hear it. I made a post years ago. I said, when I listen to music now, I don't listen to the song. I listen to how it was recorded. I listen to the mix in it.
Yeah. Occupational hazard for those of us who are in the industry. Yeah, it's really hard for me to listen to anything as just a music lover or a tourist. I mean, I'm constantly, even walking through the grocery store, I'm noticing, wow, did I just hear an edit go by, coming out of the ceiling?
There's no greater thrill than walking in the supermarket and hearing your music. I've had a lot of those in stores.
That's the only place I get to hear music I worked on in the 70s, it seems. It's true. There have been times where I've been at the grocery store and heard 2 songs that I worked on in the 70s in the half an hour I was in the grocery. So how did you learn, with this incredibly busy schedule that you have and all the traveling, how did you learn Logic? How did you find the time?
Trial and error. You usually, the nice thing with doing cocktail lounge music, you get your template set up. You kind of where the the ballpark, where it is, and then you just expand upon that. C.K. Barlow, an angel. Yeah. C.K., how do I do this? It's not doing what it's supposed to do. Oh, Bob, she'll tell me how to. But yes, for a long time, she would save my butt so many times in Logic, because she teaches that stuff. But yeah, just learning it. Matter of fact, I just realized I'm doing 2 co-writes right now, and I just realized just how I am underutilizing Easy Drummer 2.
Yeah.
And addictive drums. And YouTube, man, okay, because I was Easy 2. I couldn't find a multi-timbral way to do it, because you're running out of RAM here. You're loading too many of these. And I said, well, I got to do it. Not there, but I found these other tutorials, and I'm like, oh, I could do it like this. And now I know how to do that. And it's just, I always go back to my buddy when with Ryan, when we were doing that first recording session. I had my little Korg there, and my buddy said, "You're not going to become an engineer, are you?" I'm like, "Hell no! That's a 4-letter word. I'm a marketing guy, And yeah. Now I talk hertz and all this stuff, and yeah."
Well, there is something, there's art and craft involved in it, and it's very addictive. I recently got Logic, I think around last September, October, but didn't really mess with it much prior to the Road Rally. I don't write any music, but I started playing around with it more about 3 weeks ago, and I was remixing that song Shirelli did on stage in the ballroom with my daughter. Okay. He gave me files for that. And then this past weekend, I forgot that years ago, I bought a 2-inch 20 or a 2-inch 16 track of the Eagles song "Take It Easy" that was found in a dumpster behind Olympic Studios in London, and I bought it on eBay for $70, fully expecting that it would show up, if it showed up at all, that it would be a blank tape. I'll be damned. It was a master take that they had done all the background vocals on, the lead guitar on, everything. And then I think they were working with Glenn Johns on that record, and they were not getting along well with him. He wanted them to be a rock band, and they wanted to be a country rock band. Yeah. And so I think that they ended up doing a lot of stuff over. "Take It Easy" was one of the songs that they redid, but I've got a 16-track master of that many years ago somebody bounced to a Pro Tools session for me, and I actually got it into Logic the other day, and I spent all day Saturday remixing "Take It Easy" by the Eagles to try and make it sound like the later Eagles that worked with Bill Szymczyk, and I had that kind of silky glossy sound that Simzik got for them that Glenn Johns really didn't get for them. And it was fun. I reminded myself that I was actually good enough at things like EQ and compression and reverb that I could hear a sound and go for it and accomplish it. But all that said, at the end of the day, I said to my wife, "You want to hear my mix?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Why not? I've been working on this for hours." She goes, "I know. I've heard it. I don't want to hear it." So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, she could care less about my mix. So talk to me about collaborators, because with your normal busy, non-COVID work schedule, are you collaborating with Taxi members doing stuff remotely, or you only collaborate with people that you can bring into your home studio and record? How do you do it?
Mainly through the internet. I look at my list of people I have co-written with, and I have about 16 to 18 co-writers. Right now, I'm centering on a couple of them. Kristen Chambers out in the, I always forget if she's in Portland or Seattle, but she's out in the great Northwest there. Great jazz singer. And we were introduced by Casey Horowitz out of Philly.
Right.
He had sent me a tape. He goes, "Hey, can I use your ears?" He goes, "This song, I'd love. I know you do jazz," and I was listening. "Oh, this is great." So I wrote a nice critique and sent it to her. And my byline was, I really like your style, and I hear a lot of Nancy Wilson in your voice. It was a god to me, and I said, if you ever want a co-writer, I'd be happy to. And she said, yeah. And I think with my main publisher, I think we have like 8 or 10 songs already in the last 2 years signed in place. And we're waiting for our first placement of that. But yeah, and it's like we just finished 2 blues tunes that are real smoking, really, really smoking. And because I redid, talk about redoing. I wrote it to, I think years ago when I first started Taxi, I had a dream with a singer. In the dream, she was singing the song, and I wrote the song based on what she was saying, My Rent's Due. And I brought a friend in who's more opera, and it was like 8 octaves up. It was terrible. So we got rid of that. And then I had my Sinatra guy do it, and that's the only Sinatra tune that I couldn't get signed. It just didn't jive. And I said, hey, I got this blues tune. I'm gonna strip out his vocal. I'm gonna strip down. I had too many horns going on. I'm gonna strip it down. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send it to you. She knocked it out of the park. We got it signed like that. And because she likes the blues, I said, hey, let's do a couple blues. And this is how this process went. And it took us about a month. Now, when you're traveling and you're across the country, it takes a little longer. It's not like knocking out cues. I said, look, I said, I have a groove. And I had a B3 patch in, and I put a bass with a nice 6/8 drums thing behind it. And I just did a couple chords, sent it to her. She top-lined it, wrote the lyrics, wrote the melody. She goes, how's this? She demoed it back to me. I said, good, let's do this. We put the chorus in, boom. We back and forth, maybe 3 or 4 different demos. I like this style, do this style, this word here, I need it softer. And that's where I wish she was in the studio with me. Because as a producer, I can say, get your angle on your mic this way. And singers would just learn how to move their mouth away from the microphone when they're singing. I mean, that's an art.
It absolutely is an art.
And you watch the big name talent you see them do it, and it's right on. And not that she wasn't doing that, so if she's listening.
I would give anything to record a Lady Gaga vocal and watch her work the microphone. She's amazing. Anyway, I think I cut you off there.
So then she'll send like a final vocal back. I'll put it in, and then I'll balance everything, master up. Then I'll add my horn around her. And then we'll go back and forth a couple times. She hears things in the vocals that I didn't because she's listening to her vocals, and I'll make the adjustments, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll get it out. We got them placed, and that took a good month. And then while my files are in her machine, she's doing her thing, I'm working on another tune or somebody else's, or I'm still mixing, taking out. The biggest thing I learned from the rallies, Take it out. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to. Take it
Yeah.
out. Take it out. Take it out. Strip
I
it
want
down.
that to be on my tombstone when I die. My famous quote is, "Just because you can doesn't mean you should."
Yeah. So yeah, and I most of my collaborators, with the exception of Cherry Luna, who's local, and my two Maddie and two my session guys, everyone else is Taxi.
Yeah.
Everyone else is Taxi, from the rallies, from the forum, from just being introduced. And that's where it is. Casey and I have a ton of tunes signed. He has these pop tunes that he, in his old archives, that are just, he goes, jazz them up, do something with them, and I'll take them and decipher them and get them on. And then we just had a great placement for one of his songs, and it was Barry Sachs.
Yeah.
It was him. I forget I wish I could remember all these. That's a really good problem to have. You can't remember the shows you're in because they're building. It's a great problem to have. But it was one of these that went back in time, and it was film noir. And the guy walks, the gumshoe walks in with the hat to the bar, and he talks heavy to the girl, and she, they're straight, and the Barry sax and the flute are just there, and it's just a perfect scene. It was a perfect scene. So yeah.
I'm going to make a little marriage here during a live episode, and that is we have a Taxi member that you probably haven't met, because I don't think he's ever been to a road rally. His name is Andre Stepanian, and he lives near Vancouver. He's actually a fishing guide, like a world-class fly fishing guide, but he's also a world-class guitarist. And I've been getting to know him through the Quarantini happy hours, and recently featured him. He's actually our current passenger profile in the Taxi newsletter. But I spent a chunk of time one morning, I think a Saturday morning, watching a bunch of videos. He is to guitar what you are to piano.
Wow.
You can feel it coming from his heart through his fingers and out of that instrument. And he's jazz and flamenco, a few other styles.
So he's playing classical.
Classical or steel string, but he can do it all. Anyway, so I'm going to connect you guys via email after dinner tonight. You guys need to know each other.
I love it.
And he's got your kind of work ethic as well. So getting back to the work ethic, I'm amazed that all that you do, because the reason I want to have you on the show and cover this topic today is I'm getting a little tired from, hearing from people all these years. It's like, yeah, I joined Taxi, but I didn't really do much with it because I've got a day job. It's like, then you don't want it badly enough, because there are so many of you guys out there that are successful Taxi members that have very busy day jobs, but you're probably the busiest because of the travel thrown in there. I mean, you can do a mix on an airplane and a set of headphones. Yeah, you can do a little writing, but like we were talking about before the show, there's still that you got to get off the plane, you got to go get the rental car, you got to get to your hotel, you got to get checked in. It's all part of the travel thing, and I've traveled enough. As I said before the show, in the early days of living in LA, I was going back and forth every other weekend to New York. I know what that drill is like, and I've always been astounded that you're able to get this stuff done in quality work. You're not just painting by the numbers and cranking it out. You crank out everything you do reeks of quality, and you're able to do it the work schedule. Just amazing. So I hope that people watch this are inspired that if they've wanted this their whole life, here's a guy sitting before you that proves that it can be done, and you don't look any worse for the wear, and you cook dinner.
Well, when I hear people say I don't have time, that's the biggest thing. And I hear this when I train salespeople. I don't have time, and they don't have time to write music. They don't have time. I always quote the 6th century Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu.
Okay.
Lao Tzu, you all know Lao Tzu. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with single step. He has all those cute little sayings. Well, he says to say I don't have time is to say I don't want to. And I thought on that hard, and I say, you know what? Boy, that hits you right in the heart. So now I never say I don't have time. Now I say, Where will I find the time? How will I find the time? Sometimes you don't have time. So you got to move it to but you move that block, you schedule it. I always used to joke, Brian always said, Dad, you got to get in the gym. I don't have time. I don't, but it's the truth. It's just to say I don't have time is to say you don't want to. If you really want to do it, you're going to find the time. You're going to, with your eyelids hanging down here, you're going to put in that extra 15 minutes, and that's what separates the people who get the syncs and who do the thing. And the other side of, besides writing the music, is the business side. And I always harp on that. Yeah, you're a musician. Yeah, you're a composer, but you got to be a business person, and you got to present yourself to when publishers call. You got to be professional, and because they remember. If you're going to be a horse's patoot, so to speak, you're not going to get the second call. You're not going to get that call. Well, my big publisher, what really got me going and a great relationship with them is after I put in one of the Sinatra tunes, they came back to me and said, we want Sinatra and strings. Can you produce more? Will you produce more? And, they're expensive to produce, but I said, yeah, oh, absolutely. We'll bring them in. I started first thing, these are major productions, and I bought the Sinatra and Strings album, Don Costa. Oh my God, my hero. And listening to how he does it. And then, okay, so what songs do I have already that I can just take out the other vocal and put in my Sinatra guy?
Yeah.
And I had like 3 or 4 of them. Boom, boom, boom. Right to the publisher. Keep sending them. And I think we have like 12 signed with him.
That stuff is evergreen too, because it won't ever go out of style. It may not be the most frequently licensed genre, but it will be an always licensed genre.
I have 2 of them in Hallmarks. And they're, the With Love Christmas. There's Dan Borelli singing, play that's the Dean Cripain in my song. And it's the cheesy love dance at the end of the movie. I mean, and I was so disappointed I didn't get any Hallmark this season, because I even wrote to the supervisors and the producers of a couple of them and gave them some playlists of my new stuff, and we like, hey, thanks but we'll consider, because Hallmark plays all the time. And, when you, like you said, when you have 3 minutes or an hour, a minute and a half, that's the back end is superb.
Yep. A very dear friend of mine who has been a mentor of mine for many years once said to me about the music library business specifically, he said, it's a penny business, but get a lot of music out there so you can make a lot of pennies. That's, there's an equation to it. Talk to me a little bit more about the business side, because I just got, somebody reached out to me the other day, a publisher reached out to me and said, what is with these people? Referring to that he saw a particular taxi member using their real name, spouting off on political stuff on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere. And apparently it was a little over the top. And he said, look, I'm not even going to tell you where I sit politically, but this is just bad business. Make up a fake name or something, but don't go out there, because, half of the country is one party and half is the other party. You're bound to piss off somebody. And he noticed it, and it bothered him so much that he reached out to me. And during the conversation, he brought up, and also so-and-so is doing it. And these are smart people that you and I know well. And I can't believe they're doing it. That's got to be bad for business. You can, free speech is great. Just do it under an assumed name if you've got business relationships to nurture, would be my advice.
My whole advice on that is you'll never see anything political on mine unless I'm talking about the whole establishment. Like, political ads, all these ads that are running, how many kids could that feed?
Right.
No, I'm not going to go after whoever's in office, and my views don't mean anything. I take it one step further. Actors should act. Ball players should play ball. If you want to change society, run for office, but don't use your position as an actor to spout about. No place. Do your job. I do my job, you do your job, and leave it at that. No, you whenever you type something, before I hit that, I always look at it and say, who's going to be reading this? Who could be reading this?
Yeah.
Because I may totally hate the person in office, but you know what? He's there. He got elected. My 10 words of hate or disparity is not going to change anything. Move on. Move on. I stay so far away from, you'll never see anything really controversial on any of my pages like that.
I'm obsessed with the media. All forms of media these days have been for years, before it was fashionable, actually. And yeah, I could, espouse all kinds of stuff about that. But you know what? You're always going to piss. If you express an opinion, you're going to piss somebody off, which is free speech. Again, we should cherish free speech. But in the context of doing business, you got to be careful. Okay. Go ahead.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say I'm looking for another question, see if I missed anything. So go ahead, give me a minute. Talk.
No, on that subject, on my Facebook page, or friends, I have some publishers that are Facebook friends, and they're doing that. They're like just machine gunning. When Trump was on, they were machine gunning him to pieces, and I'm like, really, dude? Your customers are watching this. Your composers are looking this, and so I'm after that I'm like, he's an exclusive and there's a reversion clause, so I got to find these contracts and bring them back. I don't want my name associated with anything like that, because besides your music, the only other thing you have out there is your name and your reputation.
Yep.
And if your publishers look at you with respect, and if they look at you as a go-to person, someone they can rely on, it's the old, what's that line? Promise less, deliver more, so to speak.
Right. Hey, under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, that's it. You want to be that when you tell a publisher, I'll have it to you by blank. If it's 8:00, you get it there by 6:00.
Yeah.
Because when they see that email, or the upload, because they have someone that they're waiting to send that to. And you don't want to put them in that position. Well, the guy said he was going to do it, but I just saw on Facebook he's out trout fishing. Or he's playing basketball, or he's eating at Carvelo's. It's just like, come on, dude. You make a promise, say what you're going to do what you. These are old sales adages, but I mean it separates the cream from the milk. The cream rises to the top, so to speak, and
absolutely
you want to be in that top area.
You already gave me an answer to this, but let's talk a little bit about retirement again. So do you think it's possible, because you've already built the foundation and the industry and you've got music out there in catalog? So if you were able to work the 8 hours a day or more that you work on your day gig in retirement, do you think that you'll be able to substantially grow the number of tunes that you've got in catalogs, because you've got this great work ethic? You would be free to work on it all day, every day, and that could be your entire retirement income. I mean, other than Social Security.
Yeah, that's where it's going. You look at it, you financial plan it. You got Social Security coming in. Michelle's a little younger than me. She's got about 4 or 5 years 6 years before she can do the Social Security thing. We have enough savings. We have enough. I think next month I'm going to pay down the last 2 credits and we'll be debt free. Nice. If you manage your debt, you don't have to earn as much to survive, so to speak. But yeah, no, the royalty checks are coming in, the back end's coming in, the syncs are nice. And my biggest negative right now, the biggest thing that I would need more time during the day, in lieu of the day gig, is seeking out more libraries, seeking out more production houses to get my music there, more avenues.
There's never been a better time to be a Taxi member. I got to tell you, we're like running on all cylinders are just blazing right now at Taxi. We really thought we were going to take a hit when COVID hit, because we knew that productions were shutting down. And then it occurred to me, first of all, we were the first people anywhere in the industry to send out an industry-wide email saying, hey, if you're going to need music for COVID shows when this is over, we thought it'd be over in a couple of months. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got a bunch of great music in the libraries. We're so glad they ingested a lot of it. They're coming back to the trough for more now that it does look like there's light at the end of the tunnel. And then another thing we suggested to the libraries during COVID was, and they seem to pick up on this on their own as well, which is, hey, if you're not as busy as you always are plugging, it's time to go back and look at your catalog. Actually go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Do your orchestral things sound dated? Could you use fresher stuff? Could you use hybrid stuff? And so we've been busier than we've ever been in the company's 28-year history. And on top of that, we've added a ton of new libraries. So I don't know how often you get a chance to look at the listings, but there are a ton of catalogs out there that you and many of the Taxi All-Stars are not in yet. So if that's your goal, trust me, we've got them.
No, still set to the, still submit the listings.
Great.
Not as much as when I started, because
Yeah.
there's a product life cycle.
Yeah.
When you start off, it's you're the world, you're the universe, and then as you start getting in developing relationships, they start sending you briefs of what they need, and so you start focusing there because you got to go for the probability. If they're looking for it, they have a need for it. If I can fill it, maybe I can get used on it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not offended by that. I support it, actually. Going back to the timeline thing about under promising and over delivering, we just recently ran a listing for a direct to supervisor thing that needed somebody that sounded like they were a busker playing a guitar and singing out in the town square somewhere. I think it was a show that was being shot in London. So they needed somebody that sounded legitimately British or actually was British. And my friend reached out to me, my music soup friend reached out to me about 4:45 on a Friday afternoon and said, I need this. We've got to present it to the executive producer Monday morning. So I said, all right, let me get the team scrambling. And a couple people stayed a little late after work, and we got the listing out. We deadlined it on Saturday. We screened the stuff on Sunday, got it to him Sunday night, not too long after dinner, even though he technically didn't need it till probably 8 a.m. on Monday. And I checked with him a few days later, and he said, oh, yeah, I forwarded a bunch of the stuff. He actually said, I pitched a bunch of your Taxi stuff. So I believe that because we under-promised and over-delivered on that timeline, that we were able to get it to him before everybody else did, if there were anybody else's. And therefore, I'm guessing probably 6 or 8 of our things got forwarded. And I think that there were probably, 15 in the batch that went from us to him. So I'm a big fan of that. It's like, yeah, if there's a deadline, don't get it there a minute late. Get it there an hour early.
That's right.
Well, we've still got 11 minutes. How about you up for a little Q&A with the folks in the chat room?
Absolutely.
All right. Chatters, if you've got questions, I'm now pulling you up to the front of my screen, and I will relay the questions to Mr. Mete. Oh, I just crushed an earbud. I guess you're supposed to have both of them in your ears. It'll take a minute for the questions to show up because there's a little delay. Question, favorite piano sample libraries from Robert Else. That's a great question. First of all, do you record using sample libraries, or do you have a piano?
I have a 1918 Steinway upright that's coming over. I just got to find where I'm going to put it here, but I don't record it on. Everything goes through my Yamaha 505. Believe it or not, a lot of times I'll record into Logic's Steinway. I'm a Steinway guy. There's Steinway Studio or their Hall piano. And I'll tell you, sometimes if you, the patch I go to is East West, their gold pianos. which are wonderful. But a lot of times I'll just leave it in the Logic with the Steinway.
Yeah.
You put the right verb on it, you EQ it, you put a little delay, and sometimes it sounds better than the East West that I paid all that money for. But yeah, that's the only one I have is the East West Gold.
I'm going to teach you a trick that you may know already, but you may not. This is an old engineering trick that I used to use in the 70s. I did a lot with snare drums after the fact if the artist went home, because we didn't have sample libraries back then, but you can do it with piano, and I know it works really well. And that is take it out of your system, play it into a pair of speakers like NS10s or Oratones, something not very big, and put them about 4 feet apart from each other in the room, and then stereo mic them from about 4 feet away and bring it back into 2 channels and combine that with the sample, and just having the room ambience and the fact that you're pushing some air will make your piano sound even better.
I'm gonna have to try that. Fed talks a lot about that. Going in, I'm gonna have to call you on that because I've had trouble trying to do it.
Oh, okay, yeah, it does work, and it also depends the kind of part. If it's like a very legato, dreamy part, it works better than if you're doing like Honky Chateau, Elton John's kind of stuff. Yeah. Let's see if I've got another question here. How does Bob know when the song is actually finally done and ready to submit? That's from Keith Sumner.
Putting on the engineering hat from a marketing standpoint, it's like it's never done. In business, you're always yelling at the engineers, okay, we're good. Let's take it to market. For me, it's the feel. After I've gone through and listened to it 1,000 times and play it over and over, and you're listening for all the little nuances, and when there's nothing left to do. When you sit back and say, what would I do to this now? And you say nothing because the balance is right. You take it out, you listen to it on the stereo, you listen to it in the car, you listen to it in your earbuds. And after you've listened in all the different places that it's going to be heard, it's time to get it off. Time to send it off to the publisher and move on to the next one.
Andre Stepanian, the gentleman I'm going to introduce you to, the guitar player, wants to know, what are your Logic piano settings? Are you comfortable sharing those?
The settings?
Yeah. How would you EQ the Logic piano? What kind of reverb is your go-to reverb on it? That sort of stuff. Do you compress it?
In Logic, yeah. Once I record, I always go to the Grand Piano 3. Because I like the way that sets, and depending on the song, if I'm heavy in the lower keys down there, I'm gonna pull them back a little bit, and depending on the piece that I'm writing, and is it playing with other instruments? Is it solo piano? I'll adjust that so to me it sounds like it's on stage, and that's to me it always has to sound like it's on the stage and where on the stage it is. For the reverb, I just use the Space Designer, and I usually I don't put much on it at all because if I'm doing in the East West, I can adjust all the sine waves in East West, and I can adjust the stereo spread and everything else I need to do. But if I'm just leaving it in Logic, I'll maybe just bring it to like 32. And then maybe about 3/4 on the dry side. I usually put like about 385 delay in there. Just
really,
yeah.
That's kind of long. That's impressive. So you must just use a little tiny pinch of that.
Yeah, 385. That's what I use on the horns. That's a good snapback.
Yeah.
And sound. So I kind of like that. And then I'll, depending on the song, it depends what compression I'll use. And the Logic has really nice compression that I haven't bought any. I have a thing in my rack here that I can record in compression, but for the MIDI stuff, I usually go with something soft. And again, it depends on the tune. If I really want more, if I pull up like a Yamaha C5. C7 piano there, where it's bright and all that. I'm going to use something that's going to complement the tune to that. And
Wow,
that's
you really
usually
have become an engineer. I'm proud of you.
Thank you for coming from you. That's
Well, that's the art of it. You have to understand, have the foundational science, and then apply it to the artistic side of it. And that's exactly right. That if you've got like a C7 and the right hand is heavy and up an octave, different compressors will react to that differently, and you get to know your gear. I've got to say, I've been telling the guys in the Quarantini happy hours, I'm blown away with Logic. And so far, all I've done is mix a couple of things. But the plugins sound really, really good. I've downloaded some other plugins that really don't sound substantially better. And yeah, like the compressors that come stock with Logic, it's like, dude, those sound is good. I've worked in studios where I had any complement of dream equipment that any engineer could ask for, and I've not run into anything yet in my 2 mixes that I've done where I need it. It's like, oh crap, I wish I could get this, or I'm going to go download that plugin. All right, we've got time for one more question before I sit here and talk about Logic all night. Where can you listen to Bob's work? That's a good question.
If you go to SoundCloud and you put the dash, which way that dash goes, I always get that. Dyslexic, so I always mess it up. But do Red with 2 Ds, REDD dash Productions with an S, and my whole catalog's there.
Great. I just saw another good question. Where'd it go? Man, I lost that one. Anyway, somebody earlier asked exclusive versus non. Do you prefer one over the other? How much of your stuff is in one type or the other?
I am predominantly non-exclusive. I do have some exclusives, some very friendly taxi places. I just put some in. When I do exclusive, it's usually written for that library,
right,
to a brief or a request they want, and it's usually more on the Q side, because if they say, well, do a Sinatra and do 20, well, and it costs me personally, by the time I bring my session guys in and Borelli in, and if I bring my jazz trumpet guy in, I'm looking at $500-600 out of my pocket to give over the copyright, and that's not going to happen.
right.
The business side says no. I like the non-exclusives because then I have free reign to make albums. I like geographically separating my libraries too. LA, I have New York, I have London, and because they're all going to be talking to different publishers, they all have their own niche customers that they go to. This show is not going to go to everyone, and not
Right.
only to exclusive, they spread it out. I always use the example of if I sold, this shaker here, like Al DeSico's shaker here, I can give it to Ace Hardware that only has 100 stores, or I can give it to Walmart and they're talking to 1,000 stores. I like to get it out there. The law of probability, numbers on the wall, because that exclusive, like I have a couple exclusives that I'm going to be sending letters to, asking, because they have some really good jazz. I wrote a whole CD for one guy. He got one placement out of it, and the other stuff hasn't even registered yet. And the 3 years are up and the 5 years are up. I want these back because I know my other publishers will kill for them because they're really good. So, yeah, I like the non-exclusive just because I like to hold my own copyrights, and I like to be able to decide where they're going. And if someone calls up, and I've been starting to do more work with music supervisors. And if the guy's never heard of my publishers, because I'll always direct it to a publisher. Hey, right. Call this person, call that person, because I feel that's a two-way street. They're bringing me the business of, I'm not a library, so I'll send it back to them or tell them where they can go. So yeah, I just like that freedom.
I get you. All right. Well, thank you. We're out of time You've been an amazing guest as always. For those of you who
thank
don't
you.
know, I had Bob on the show 3 years ago when he happened to be in LA for work, and he was great that day. He's been great on the stage at the Road Rally a couple of times. A real font of information, an inspiration on a work level or work ethic basis. I'm amazed that you find the time, especially with the travel. But and someday we'll have to have you on the show. We'll do a cook-off because I cook dinner pretty much Sunday through Thursday. I cook virtually all the dinners. My wife cleans up, and Friday night she always does the nice big Shabbat dinner, and Saturday night we get pizza or something. But
Well, when we do that, I have cocktail piano music that could be playing in the background. For
awesome. All right. The next time you're in LA, we'll do a TAXITV from my house, and we'll do a cooking show together with your music playing in the background.
Awesome. I love it.
Thank you. And funny enough, the gentleman who asked the question about where can I hear you music, and you directed him to Red Productions, REDD, his last name is REDD. So that was meant to happen. All right. Tell Ryan I said hi.
I will do so.
And that's it. Thank you, man. You were a great guest. Always happy to see your face and hear what's going on in your world. Thank you for sharing what you know with our members. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Mete.
Thank you all. Have a great time. Be safe.
Take care. Keith LeBrand.
Oh, yeah.